Hi team, welcome to the Escape Podcast for Star Wars The Old Republic. Coming up, crafting in Knights of the Fallen Empire. They have altered the deal, pray they don't alter it further. But first, other SWTOR news and a shout out to our guild Alea Iactast. Our broadcast astromech today is EPC 112, who will soon be loaded with this show recording and ejected in an escape pod. I'm sure some kind of remote broadcast droid part might have saved him from having to take that escape pod ride, but sadly, Cybertechs can't make droid parts anymore. Sorry. With me as always is Seema.
Aw.
Hi Seema, how's it going?
Poor EPC, no more droid armor.
Right? No more droid, nothing. They're yanking it out.
I know. So, yes, lots of things here. So I did have some fun time with my various materials. I have a number of my legacy storage tabs are just filled with materials. So I kind of took the list of materials that they said they're deleting, and I took all the ones that are getting deleted out of my cargo, out of my legacy storage, and put them together in one tab in an individual bank, just because I want to see when they convert them how that goes, so they're all in their little space. That was tedious. I don't recommend it, but yeah, I was kind of interested. And also I enjoyed watching the cosplay live stream from the Cantina. If you didn't watch it, it's available. It's archived on the Twitch stream. And it was judged by, of course, Eric Musco was the MC, but the judges were Tate Watson, Michael Backus from BioWare, and also this Terrace from Minoxden. And I really recommend you checking out his website, Minoxden. He makes props for Star Wars costumes he has 3 or 4 3D printers. So he has a bunch of cool stuff for you to look at. And then his initial post on his webpage right now has some really cool pictures of the cosplay thing. So if you don't want to watch the Twitch thing, you can at least see pictures of kind of almost everybody kind of standing together. So check out Minoxden.
That is really cool. I'm a big fan of 3D printing, and I always thought it would be cool to be 3D printing costume parts and props like that. Maybe after the show, I'll show off one of the things that I 3D printed in the office.
Oh, I want to see it, yeah.
I have been working on continuing to get ready in the final countdown towards Knights of the Fallen Empire. I've been leveling up the last couple of characters that I wanted to get through Ziost and just have all tuned up and ready to go. I have 2 more that I think, 2 or 3. I guess I have a Marauder that's 57. I have a Juggernaut now that's 58, almost 59. And I have my Smuggler who's been sitting at 55 since like 2 months after launch. Or whenever. No, I guess it would have been 50 then, but I don't even think the class story is completely done on that guy. So I got to get back to that. I don't know what's stopping me there, but that's the last one. So I'm gonna go after that and get those all tuned up, and then think about tuning up Companion Affection as the last thing, because that will matter in Knights of the Fallen Empire. Won't matter as much getting it done beforehand as I thought, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the news, but it does matter for affection power, influence power of your companions when you fight with them. But speaking of that, let's talk about that news.
Now an Imperial News Network report.
So they did put in the dev tracker that they're removing all the Reach Max Affection achievements. And what that was for a particular class, if you got the maximum affection, I always have max affection. If you got the maximum affection for all the companions for that class, you got a loyalty to the class achievement for doing that. And then if you got them all on each side, you got a meta achievement with a title. They're taking those out completely. They're really changing how affection works. It's now called influence in Knights of the Fallen Empire. They're also changing the way your companion mix sort of works. And instead of just straight up your companions for your character, it's now a whole alliance of people that come and play and fight with you. And I think as all of part of that, they just thought it didn't make as much sense, and they're yanking it out. They're sort of replacing the meta achievement, though, the whole loyalty to the class, and they're now calling it devotion to the class, and you can still get that. I don't think the old one's going to carry over. So I think if you had loyalty to the class, I don't think that carries over from what it sounds like to me. I thought it did originally, so I was going to go around and get them all, finish it off on all the classes, which I don't have done yet. But now I'm thinking the way I'm reading it is that it's changing into this new thing, which is devotion to the quote-unquote class, and the way you get that is 1,000 kills with each of the companions for that class, the base companions. So,
and if you have 1,000 kills, will that carry over, do you think?
So yeah, I think that if you have 1,000 kills now, you'll just get that devotion to the class achievement when you log in on the 20th or whatever. You still, as I was saying, you still want affection with any companion. Affection affects how powerful they are in combat and how well they do any of the roles. Remember, they can do any of the roles in Knights of the Fallen Empire. You want affection maxed out, basically, in order to have them be as effective as they can be in any of those roles. So it's not a waste to get them to maximum affection, but I don't think that whole achievement thing carries over at all. The other little side twist on it is some of the achievements that are changing in Knights of the Fallen Empire, they're going to be putting into sort of like a legacy, here's old archived achievements that you can still look at. These are not going into there. They're getting deleted. I don't know why. I don't know why they still don't just stick them in there, but that's the way they're phrasing it. So that's that.
I think I'm going to wait, because I'm looking at the 1,000 kill ones that I don't have, and I don't have it with Mako, for instance, and I would just rather wait until she can be a good DPS for me if I stay in my healing spec.
Yep. So Utini Cast, I was listening to Utini Cast last week, and they're in their little tip section, someone sent in a tip for how to get 1,000 kills really quickly with your companions. And you go in and you solo Colicoid war games.
Yeah, I heard that too.
And there's waves and waves of Colicoids bugs that come out and fight you. I guess you're killing hundreds of them at a time. So yeah, I guess you get it really quick. So sure, wait. And if you still need it, if it's still interesting, you can pop in there and get it quicker. Wait and
do it in a gruelingly slow way, or do it now in an easy way. Okay.
Yep. What else?
Let's see, what else? Oh, so the SWTOR Answers HQ is now live, and that's like a way to get support online as a replacement for, we used to go to the CS forums before, the customer support forums. This is just a different place to go, a little bit different format, and hopefully will work better.
I took a look at it. It does seem like a good system for promoting which questions are still unanswered, who's answering questions, how good of an answer was rated for particular questions. I think it's going to be a much better system for getting questions actually answered and elevating good answers to questions. It also seemed like there were some people in there that I didn't cue in just yet to what the motivation is, but there seemed to be some usual suspects that were going around and answering a bunch of questions. I don't know if they sort of become an MVP or get little badges for it or what, but there seemed to be some people that were motivated to be giving out some pretty good answers to problems that people were having and really trying to be helpful. So with that...
Was there like a knowledge-based thing where you could kind of check out if your question is already answered?
Yeah, there's the most answered questions, there's top answers of the week type of things, and then there's a whole search system. So it seemed effective. We also saw something in the dev tracker that this was just a little side note. People have been having trouble with the launcher, and there's a utility that's built into the install where you can repair the launcher. I guess they updated that launcher repair utility first. So for some reason you're having trouble with the launcher, it's not updating itself correctly, and you're using an old install or you're using the old version of the launcher utility, you can go in the dev tracker, you can probably search in support and maybe post a question on SWTOR Answers HQ and ask about it. There's a new download for the new launcher repair utility.
Cool.
And Seema, how was the Galactic Gamers Coalition podcast this week?
Oh, that was a ton of fun. When that does get published, I really, really recommend it. So it was run this month by Marshall and Will from the usual podcast. Tio was there from UtiniCast. I was there from SWTOR Escape podcast. Chuck from Bad Feelings podcast. Paige from Star Wars Beyond, and Jesse from Passionately Casual. And I had never met Paige and Jesse before, and so it was awesome to talk to these two really, really articulate, very avid game playing women podcasters.
Yeah.
So it was really fun, and I recommend it to everyone.
Yeah, I didn't even realize.
Should be coming out sometime. We don't know when it'll come out because Marshall has to work on editing it. But yeah, look for it.
Yeah, that was a good round. I was in I didn't know if I would be around, and we want to trade off anyway, but I did end up being able to be in the stream and in the chat room the whole time, and it was a good time. You know, Marshall's a great guy to be hosting it. I really like Marshall, and it was a great crew, and good topics, good things to talk about, of course. So, and
of course, Tio is always, fantastic, and Chuck is always so much fun. Yeah. So yeah, highly recommend.
And Chuck's beard, of course, was epic as ever. So there's always that.
His beard is epic.
It's legendary. Guild news, guild comments. Shout out to our guild members. We wouldn't be doing this without our guild. That's the core reason we do this. And to everyone not in Alea Iacta Est, the most awesome guild. Don't forget, as Knights of the Fallen Empire ramps up, that our guild AIE is always looking for new members on Jedi Covenant. The Greater Alea Iacta Est Guild is a very large, family-friendly, multi-game sort of gaming community. And we have a smaller but solid community in Star Wars, the Old Republic, on both sides, Republic and Imperial. And we have established gaming communities in pretty much every other major MMO that's out there today. You can certainly join our guild anytime and come hang out on our monthly events and weekly events like Mandatory Fun Night, and check in with our ops teams or start an ops team of your own with our help. We'd be happy to help you with that. Our guild forums and tools are on aie-guild.org, and you can certainly jump in the game and catch in the officers or Seema or myself in game with /cjoin AIELFO, and we'll get you some guild invites. And also, as always, thank you to the chat room. We were chatting with people before the podcast started. It's always great to do that, and then to catch up after and find out any other questions and talk to these great people that we've got down there. I really like being able to hang out with the usual suspects that are always there and some new people every time. So thanks, guys. And with that, I think we can talk a little bit about the altered deal we're getting with crafting in 4.0.
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
Yes. So this one, I think it did fit altered deal. So to start off, Ahmed Zabara was a senior designer who put out the blog post. He did a great job getting this information out to us, and I really appreciate that. We've been waiting for crafting information. I know this is an interesting part of the game that I know you, Seema, do enjoy, and I know a lot of people do. So we've been waiting for a bunch of this information. We're going to go through at a high level. I certainly encourage everyone to read the blog post and get a lot of the details. We're going to go through at a high level some of the highlights, things that we found interesting. We're also going to touch on the things that still remain questions for us, and I know they'll fill in these gaps over time. We already saw one blog post in the dev tracker, which clarified some of the questions that were coming up. We're going to continue to ask these questions of the developers as things get closer. Hopefully more of them will get answered. And of course, we're going to be able to see for ourselves around the time of October 20th. So with that, let's get started.
My favorite phrase.
Yes. We saw quite a few. So the baseline change is that there is no new set of skill points. We're still capped at 500. You don't have to skill up to 550 or anything like that. That sounded good to me. I don't think we need to say too much about that. The somewhat complicated part of that, though, is that they're collapsing all of the current tiers of and the groups of crafting into 8 grades, where it's currently at least 10, and there's even more than 10 in a couple instances. But we're used to have things like the MK10 augment kits. Everything is down now into 8 grades. So we'll talk about augment kits and augment slots in particular, but those are going to be capped now at grade 8. They just felt like it was getting too unwieldy, and they didn't want to keep adding, they didn't want to have tier 95, so they're squashing things down a little bit this round. I don't know that that's the most scalable way for them to do that long term, to sort of keep squashing it, and I think that might get confusing over time as they add expansion after expansion, which we expect they will want to. But they feel like they need to do it at this point, so fine. They're doing a couple tweaks around that. So I've got these 8 grades. We will talk about how the materials are being squashed, but they did want to clarify that because now they have these 8 grades and there's still 500 skill points, there's going to be a smooth transition across all of those skill point tiers, and you don't ever have to go back to the trainer and say, well, now I'm at 400, I need to train, advanced cyber tech to be able to get up to 450, and then I need to train ultimate cyber tech to be able to get from 450 to 500. You don't need to do that anymore. You just go up to 500. So great.
Right.
That sounded good to me. Any comments on that and those grades, Seema?
Well, I think the way it is now, or the way it will be, is that every 4, 5, or 6 levels, you'll go to a new grade, and then except for the top level, which now will cover 10 levels, and will cover not only some leveling gear but also some in-game gear. So that top level, that grade 8, might be a little challenging for someone who's just learning, but I'm fine with it in general.
Right. So am I. And I think there's still a bit of confusion in there, in that these grades 1 through 8 do not map 1-to-1 to the level ranges of item levels of gear necessarily. So I don't think we need to get our heads too wrapped around what happens at endgame. I think within that grade, I think you just need to worry about the grades when you're talking about tiers of materials and crew missions and schematics. Those will fall into these grades. When you start thinking about end game gear and what we now think of as basic, elite, and ultimate comms and the gear that they give, while that's all going to sort of be piled into that grade 8 to some degree, and the kinds of things you can craft that will somewhat match up will sort of be piled into there. Ops gear is a separate thing, and the gear levels where right now we go up to 190, 192, and 198, and where that's going to go from there, and it's going to continue to grow from sort of like an item level perspective, that's different. So moving down into their section where they talk about crafting skill changes, they did say that all of the current existing schematics that are not part of Fallen Empire are going to be moved into an archives category of your skill window. You're still going to be able to have them, and you're still going to be able to make some of that stuff, but a lot of that stuff is going to be somewhat obsolete, and you may still want to make some of those things, but you won't be able to get a lot of those schematics in the future. A lot of people in the forums and on Twitter are saying, hey, if there are things out there that you think you might want to get in terms of schematics that are either on like the comms vendors or in other places on the GTN, you may want to pick those up now and get those in your skills now, because those schematics may end up going away, or some of them may at least.
Right, and that would be the schematics for, light armor, medium armor, and heavy armor, for like tech blades, for vibro knives, for all the stuff that's the conventional crafting stuff.
They also said that all of the green stuff that you craft is going away. They didn't see a need for crafting green items. Nobody really used them anyway. Nobody crafted green stuff, green level stuff to wear or use. So all of that's going away. You're only getting the blue tier of stuff. They also made some comments.
Blue gear is...
What's that?
The blue gear is going to be adaptive, not moddable, but adaptive.
Right. And so adaptive means that no matter the armor type that you wear, be it medium, light, medium, or heavy, that it will adapt to that type of armor that you should be wearing. So if you're crafting a piece with mastery on it, and a mastery chest, a versatile chest of polyplast or whatever, and you wear heavy armor, it'll become heavy armor. You wear light armor, it'll become light armor. That's what adaptive means. They talked about reverse engineering a couple times throughout this blog post, and I think a little bit of what they're talking about in terms of reverse engineering is still somewhat confusing, and I have questions certainly. So they said something along the lines of reverse engineering items no longer gives a random item. Instead, the item reverse engineered will give an improved version of that item. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what that means, because the items that you got through reverse engineering, the schematics that you were able to get from reverse engineering and learn were never random. You always were getting a particular set of schematics. And
right, but it was random within that set.
Okay. So right. So there's less variety potentially in the types of items that you would be reverse engineering, so that you
maybe. But I think what they're saying is you were probably trying to get a particular one anyway, so now you're just going to get that one. Now you know what you're going to get. You may not get it on this time because of RNG, but you won't get the one you don't want.
Okay.
Or the 4 that you don't want.
So I'm still interested to see how this exactly works and happens. But this does lead to another problem. They've got specific terminology that I think they need to be careful of and stick to.
I agree.
Because when you reverse engineer an item, you don't get another item. You get a schematic to be able to create another item. Yeah. So this is one of the things that I saw a couple times in this post that is causing some question, and we're gonna get to some more of those questions. We also made the point that all the armor that's crafted is adaptive, and what adaptive means is if you wear light armor, whatever armor piece you craft will work for light armor, will work for medium armor, will work for heavy armor wearers, and if you wear light armor, it'll become a light armor piece. If you wear heavy armor, it'll become a heavy armor piece. They also added in this new concept, and maybe this is because you're not crafting green items anymore, that a lot of these blue and purple schematics that you'll be learning now require what they're calling a component.
Right.
And a component requires a couple materials, like a couple metals, or I would imagine a couple pieces of and any of the component materials that you're used to using go into making these components, along with 2 vanadium flux or whatever things that you get off a vendor.
Whatever the vendor item is, right?
So it's going to be like 2 of material 1, 2 of material 2, and 2 vanadium flux, and then you make a component. And then you need a couple components and a couple of the blue crew mission materials in order to make the finished piece that you were going to make. That is interesting. I wish they would have explained why they were going that route. One of the things that they said they were trying to achieve by putting this new system in place was clarifying and simplifying the way crafting works. I think this adds a layer of complexity, and I'm not sure exactly why. I'm sure there's reasons, but it'd be interesting to know those reasons.
Well, for me, I think it adds a little bit of simplification, because say you're a new player and you're a bounty hunter. No, I don't know. I got nothing. I actually think it's going to make leveling harder, because before you could level by making green items, and they didn't require the mission items.
Well,
the items you get from Crucible missions.
They did clarify.
And this component. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. They did clarify that
this mission.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, really. Go ahead.
You can level up just by making these components, which are the green items.
Correct, but they require. What I was going to say is they require the blue items from missions, right?
No, the components are only gathering materials.
Oh, I see. Material, and vendor thing. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I think if you're a brand new crafter and you think, okay, I don't want to craft anything for myself until I can craft this earpiece that I want at level 42. You don't have to make any of the other stuff that might in between that might be for you don't know what, and you can just say, okay, I'm just going to craft components up to that level then. So in a way, maybe that's simpler. to think about.
I think that may be their intent, because in fact they put that note in the blog post itself with an exclamation point after it. If a player chose to, they could level up exclusively by crafting components. Like that was some really fun thing to do.
Right. And I don't think it would be fun, but it might be easier if you're getting over a gap.
And you, as you say, you don't have to use any of those blue mission materials, which are much harder to get. So, okay.
So presumably you won't hit one of those dry spots where you have a couple of points that you can't get unless you find some more expensive mats somewhere.
Exactly. So there's that. And that's interesting. They also said that the crafting times have been greatly reduced, and that's great. We certainly are interested to make that easier. It's some stuff really is starting to take longer and longer. And again, if they added another tier and felt like they needed to bump up those times again, it'd be taking us like 5 hours to make an augment.
Yeah, right. It was getting ridiculous. Yeah.
That was no longer sustainable really either. Then they got to talking about augments, and this is a place where I really had some issues, and I think we need some clarifications in a number of ways, and I think this is where we're going to spend some more time than anywhere else, so we'll talk about it for just a second. They said to match all of that, augments have been reduced to 8 tiers. That's wrong. I think that's not what they mean, and even though that statement is in there, I think that's completely incorrect.
Right.
I think augment kits and augment slots have been reduced to 8 tiers. That's something that is interesting. That's part of what they wanted to squish. Further in this statement, they talked about existing MK9 and MK11 kits will turn into MK8, which again,
I'm waiting. I'm still waiting for the schematic for MK11 kits.
There's no such thing as an MK11 kit. So I think what they mean again is MK9 and MK10 kits will turn into MK8 kits. So if you have any of those left over, they're all going to become MK8 augment slot kits. Any slots in your armor that are MK9 or MK10 are going to become MK8 augment slots. I think augments are not changing. Their tiers are not changing. Advanced Skill Augment 36 is still going to exist. And I think there's going to be new tiers of augments that are going to be available that match the new tiers of gear that are going above 192 and 198 that's coming out in Knights of the Fallen Empire.
They might require, and they will require all grade 8 mats, but they'll be their own tier.
Further,
see, that's not confusing at all.
No, not at all. Further, what those augments currently require is a purple material that comes from slicing. That purple material is called an adaptive circuitry to make the Advanced Skill Augment 36, for example. It's not clear currently, and they have not made it clear what it's going to take to make any of the new augments that are going to be coming out, or even if there's going to be any changes to the current schematics to make those Advanced Skill Augment 36s. There has been some speculation that, and I'll just call it speculation, that there will be higher tiers of augments, and they will take a different number of those types of purple mats, and that could be a relatively significant change to the let's just say the profitability of slicing.
Yeah.
If you're a slicer currently in the game, and that's one of the ways you sort of make your living is just off of slicing, one of the things you're trying to do is get a lot of those adaptive circuitries, and if there's far fewer numbers of adaptive circuitries that are needed in the new world, that's a big impact. And they haven't talked about that at all. It's not clear what that's going to be. And I think, again, laws of unintended consequences, I hope they're looking at that in detail, and they're not going to completely ruin slicing altogether, besides people that feel like it's fun to go out in the world and pick things up off the ground.
I hope they learned from the slot machine fiasco that they need to check it out first.
Yes. Then other changes, other deals are being altered. I hear that Cybertex got their deal altered relatively significantly. I've been talking a lot, Seema. Why don't you talk about?
So right now, Cybertex can make arm rings, mods, earpieces, droid armor, and grenades. So they're saying they're taking away armor rings from Cybertex, and they're taking away the reusable grenade, but so they can make the consumable grenade. They're taking away droid armor, so Cybertex are left with armor rings, without armor rings because it's taking that away with mods and with grenades. And then they are also going to end up with enhancements because they're moving enhancements from Artifice to Cybertex. So Cybertex will be able to make mods and enhancements and consumable grenades. So that's going to be the big things for them. The armorings are going to settle down in some in armor mech and some in Sith weaving. So there's going to be two types of armorings. One is called the resistive armorings and one is called versatile armorings. And we're thinking, they call one endurance and one mastery, but we're thinking that the resistive armorings are going to be the higher, that they're going to have endurance and mastery, but endurance is the higher stat. And those are going to be made by armor mech. And then the versatile ones are going to have endurance and mastery, but mastery will be the higher stat. And those are going to be exclusive to synth weaving, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And so basically, if you are a crafter that has one of those things that have moved out of your discipline for crafting, those recipes will be removed completely. You will not be able to, they won't be archived in a special section or anything. They'll just be removed, which, yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense that they would be removed. This whole musical chairs to balance the crafting classes a bit, I think is interesting. I don't know if it was the best opportunity to sort of to balance as they did. I think there was less balancing that needed to happen between, say, synth weaving and cybertech and armor mech, for example. I think arms tech was the one that was probably the least interesting in a number of ways, and I don't think there's all that much interesting that's going into arms tech at this point. So I'm not exactly sure what they think they got out of this. I know they're trying to split things up a little bit more, and some of it makes sense.
I'm hoping that it's based on numbers, right? Because just by listening to a bunch of podcasts in the past week and listening to the people who do play a lot of the GTN and do a lot of crafting, Artifice was by far the runaway, big moneymaker in the current X-Pack. So there's a feeling that they needed to be like a little balanced, and so taking enhancements away from them might have been a good move.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. And then armorings, in a way, armorings is not a huge loss to Cybertex because if you look at just the end-game market or the elder game market, people are buying mods and enhancements. Armorings not as much, right? Because they're trying to preserve the armorings they have gotten in ops that have set bonuses on them. And they might buy enhancements more than any other type of mod because enhancements are very popular to use for min-maxing.
Yes.
So they might be buying them multiple times for the same piece of armor over time. So it might be a good deal for Cybertex.
And droid armoring getting removed, that's just an effect of the way the companions work in Knights of the Fallen Empire. I don't think that was any effort to balance or unbalance Cybertech.
I'm surprised that people were complaining about that because I was unaware that people were making that armor, really.
I don't know whether people were making it very much or not. It was something that you at least could make and could sell to some degree for people that wanted to gear up their HK 47s or 51s.
51, yeah, and their T7s and their 4Xs.
So fine. The final piece of that balancing that I don't necessarily agree with all that much, but whatever, it's fine. Is they removed the reusable biochem consumables and the reusable cybertech grenades. So the reusable stim, the reusable med packs, the reusable grenades are no longer, they're gone. There's none of those reusables anymore. I sort of liked those. I liked having, when I had one of those crew skills, I liked having that little extra ability to have a little something special. And now it's just going to be what everyone else can just buy off the GTN, and I'll make them and put them on GTN, or make some, great, I can make them for myself. Anyone else can get them too. It's not all that interesting anymore to actually have my character that I'm playing have a particular profession. I just need to have some character or a friend or access to the GTN to be able to get my stims.
And the stims and the med packs, the reusables, yes, they're a couple of tiers back, so they haven't been that useful for ops. But the reusable grenades, I don't know if they work in PvP, but the reusable grenades are different because really, in some instances, since they have there's one that knocks them down and acts as an interrupt, you don't need it to be doing a lot of damage. It'll do its job at whatever level,
right?
Theoretically.
Right. So in Elder Game crafting, we've seen some changes as well. What they seem to be doing is breaking it up into two different types of Elder Game crafting, what they're calling Elder Game crafting. One is focused on the types of things you'll be able to go to a trainer and learn a schematic for. And the second is the types of things that you're going to need to go into operations and get the drops and do some reverse engineering on. The things that you'll be able to go to the trainer for will be schematics for story mode armor, full armor pieces like a chest piece or leg piece, non-moddable full armor piece that you will be able to do some reverse engineering on to even get hard mode versions of that. It will be sort of the non-operations grades of those kinds of things is what it sounds like to me, which I would expect would be the higher endurance stat mix and no set bonuses, of course.
Right. Yeah, they're saying it's going to be a little bit better than, whatever you can buy with the comms.
Right.
But less good than what you can get in ops.
Right. And non-moddable, which is so you won't be pulling mods out of it, you won't be putting new mods into it. That's really a sort of a different thing. It will require a new purple component. So right now we have like the energy matrix things that we can get from reverse engineering operations gear.
Matter transubstantiator.
Yep. There will be one of those that's associated with this trainable gear pieces, and those you'll be required to complete your personal conquest target in order to get those. I saw a lot of questions in the forums on what that means. What's your personal conquest target? If you hit L and then hit your conquest tab, you'll be able to see what conquest is. And if you're part of a guild, you can be participating in guild conquest. You can still do individual conquest, but it's doing this sort of the challenges for the week that are part of conquest to hit your point target for the week. And if you hit that point target, you get a sort of a reward prize after the week resets on Tuesday. And in that box is going to be these purple crafting components that you're going to need to be creating this schematic level gear.
I hope that is not an RNG thing, and I hope those are tradable / sellable.
Exactly. So I hope so as well. I also noticed this was another place that they talked about reverse engineering. So you're going to get these, you're going to train these schematics, and then they talked about a guaranteed reverse engineering chance. I don't know exactly what that means. So if I get the schematic and I get the story mode blue, story mode purple piece of chest gear, and I want to get the hard mode version, so I make the story mode version and I reverse engineer it. Is it a guaranteed schematic that I'll get from reverse engineering the story mode and I'll just get the hard mode piece? Or is there still some RNG mixed in the mix? Or I don't know exactly from the phrasing.
When they say guaranteed chance, of course we don't know what that means. But I'm going to go with the thing that he means guaranteed in that you know what you're going to get if you get it.
Okay. So there's still a chance, but you know what you're going to get.
Right.
Or you're guaranteed to get it or not.
You're not guaranteed to get it. There's a guaranteed. I think what they mean is there's still RNG in that you can reverse engineer the piece and not get the schematic.
Yeah.
But if you do get the schematic, it's guaranteed to be that piece of gear, but the hard mode version of it, not some other piece of gear.
Right.
Like it is now.
Okay. So we're gonna have to see on that. That wasn't all that clear. So that's an
no,
open
it's
question.
not clear. I'm just making up. That's what I think they mean.
Now on the operations side, you will be getting drops in operations. You can take those pieces of gear that you get in operations. You can take them apart because those have the mods in them: armoring, mods, and enhancements. You will be able to reverse engineer the armorings, mods, and enhancements, and be able to then get schematics for those that you'll be able to craft on the appropriate skill, with the appropriate crew skill. Those are going to require an operations component to be able to create the story mode, hard mode versions of those armoring, mods, and enhancements. And those are going to be only dropping in operations, that purple component. So there's going to be two specifics of those components. There's the conquest component for the learned materials, and then there's the operations component for the operations reverse engineered materials. And let me see, I think I had the names of those two components as well. So the conquest mat is called the strategic resource matrix, and the operations mat is called the dark matter catalyst. So that's going to be sort of the two ways that you're going to go after Elder game gear that they're talking about. So that's interesting. I like that they're trying to make it crafting matter in endgame and be able to with effort and with going out there and either doing conquest or doing operations, craft some of these pieces. That does seem interesting.
If you can make your personal goal, and Suka Beru in the chat room reminded me that the personal goal is being reduced to 25K for most of the weeks, except for Total Galactic War. If you can make that by doing ops, then I'm okay with that. I don't want to have to do flashpoints though in order to make my in order to craft
or PvP or do weird things that you wouldn't normally want to do. So we'll have to see how easy it is to get those hit those targets, and we'll certainly have to hope that those are BOE and not BOP, so you wouldn't have to be hitting your personal target on each of those characters where you have a crafter that you want to make a thing on. So that's because that would certainly make it complicated as well. Finally, they talked a little bit about changes to harvesting and mission skills. They said that right now, if you go into the crew skill interface and you try to run a particular mission that you want, it doesn't always show up. It only shows 5 of the possible missions for a particular tier. What are each of those grades of missions? So for slicing, for example, the only slicing mission that returns 4 adaptive circuitry is one called disassembly required. That disassembly required mission, out of the 9 or so possible slicing missions, I think it's 6, 7, 8. I think there's 8 slicing missions. I do a lot of slicing. There's 8 possible slicing missions. 6 of them are interesting. 2 are completely useless because they only return the blue slicing mat, which you already get anyway. You just vendor the extras. I get too many. So disassembly required and Forsaken Handshake, I think, is the other one. The disassembly required returns, if you crit, returns 4 adaptive circuitry. So if you want to go run disassembly required, it may not show up in the 5 missions that you currently have for slicing. There are tricks like zoning out of your ship or changing zones or getting anything that shows up a load screen will shuffle that list and potentially get you some different missions in that list. So if I don't see disassembly required, what I do is I hit my stronghold and I switch back and forth between Tatooine and Yavin, and I keep popping back and forth until I see disassembly required. Then I go and I run disassembly required. Great. You don't have to do that anymore. Now that I've explained
awesome,
that,
because
it's all gone.
Yeah. Because that whole zoning in, zoning out, or logging in, logging out is way too tedious. It doesn't add anything other than
maybe there was a performance
clicking and
reason.
waiting.
Initially they didn't want to be showing too much in the interface and it caused them problems for whatever reason. they don't feel like they have that anymore, and they're just going to show them all.
Yeah, I'm totally glad they're changing this.
Awesome. And then they're also changing harvesting of nodes. And the way harvesting of nodes is going to be changed is you can now go to any planet at any skill level and harvest any node. The higher your skill level, the more stuff you'll get out of it. The lower your skill level, the less stuff you'll get out of it. And you will skill up on any node, anywhere, on any planet. Sounds good to me.
Yep, I like it. I'm happy with that.
Did you notice the
It's gonna make it
archaeology
way
crystal
easier.
change, Seema?
Yes, I'm happy about that too. So you won't get like in a zone you get like 25 red crystal nodes and one fragment node and one of the other crystal nodes. So each of the nodes now will have a chance to give artifacts and crystals. So
Right.
that's good.
Yeah, archaeology always had that problem because there was 5 different possible nodes that could appear in each of the spots where an archaeology node could appear, and 3 of them were color crystals, which were useless. So 3 out of 5 times you'd walk up to where an archaeology node should be, and there would be some crappy color crystal that you barely wanted.
Right.
So that will be changing as well.
I mean, and the reason they're useless is you would just have way more of them than anything else. So yeah.
Yep. So to sum it up, for me, I want clarification on what's going on with augments. I'm sort of sad that the reusable biochem and cybertech components are going away, and I'm going to have to sort of get used to... I've got all of the crew skills across my character set. I'm going to have to get used to where everything is shuffling to and what's going to be interesting to craft and what's not, and see how that shakes out. So it's changes are a coming, and I'm interested to see how it turns out. But I still do have questions, and I hope some of them get answered. How about you, Seema?
My feelings are mixed.
Yeah.
I feel like some of the changes that they're making do make it seem like they understand what's going on, and they have a goal and they're moving towards it. And then others of them, like this crafting the blue adaptable gear, especially for leveling, I think that's going to be about as useful as the birthright and inheritance gear is now. Nobody wears blue gear when they're leveling. And even the brand new player, the first time they run across a piece of moddable gear and they can buy the mods for it with their basement crystals or whatever they're going to be called, they're going to go, yeah, I want this moddable gear.
Yeah, I think so too.
And they're going to, yeah, and so that seems like maybe a layer they could have just not bothered with. But I do think the story mode and the hard mode crafting stuff is really interesting. I'm really anxious to see how that's going to play out.
Exactly. Again, bunch of questions swirling around that as well. So we're gonna have to see how that plays out, and I'm interested to see as well.
And SWTOR FCOM in chat just asked, are they removing the reusables from your inventory or just the schematics? I think they're taking them out of your inventory
I think
too.
they're disappearing. They're done. They're gone.
They must feel really strongly because that is a bold move.
Yes, they said they weren't going to be trying not to take things away from us. They're going to have to pry those out of my cold, dead hands. So
I love mariachi music.
questions, yes. Some answers. Glad to get a preview. Hopefully we'll get more. Couple clarifications showing up in the dev tracker. Dev tracker will certainly be keeping our eye on that and hoping for more clarification as time goes on.
In 7 days, we'll be able to play with it a little bit.
And there's also that.
We may not see the end game crafting because of Conquest being offline, but someone in chat said that there's a rumor going around that you'll still be able to get your personal rewards even while Conquest is offline. So I don't know. That would be nice.
Yeah, I think that was a misinterpretation of some of the comments that were going around Conquest. I don't think that Guild Conquest is actually going away. I'm not completely sure. It always could.
Yeah.
I think
it would make sense if the whole system was offline.
Yeah, I think it's still going to be there, and I think from what I saw of the Q&A of where that conclusion came from, that rumor about guild conquest going away is not the case. So with that, I'll let our little EPC 112 droid here head out with his empty husk without any droid parts anymore, jump in the escape pod and get this podcast out. Thanks to all of you for joining us either on newoverlords.com or on iTunes or YouTube or live on Twitch. We will stream again next Monday night on twitch.tv/newoverlords around 10:30 p.m. Central. Please follow us on Twitter @MaxTheGray and @AIESEMA. And you can certainly, as we said, find us on Jedi Covenant and ask for an AIE Guild invite. We would love to have you. And we will talk to you soon.
Later, everyone.